DreAllDay.com.
Now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, I'm gonna give you a little bit more. You're gonna get a huge dose of personal initiative. That's the go-getter energy that moves anyone out there, anybody, doesn't matter where they are right now. It will move any of us to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all of this together in one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy. This show, this masterclass here that I call Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day. If you didn't know, welcome to the show. For those of you who are here for the first time, those of you who have been here more than once, welcome back. Today's topic, fixing your weaknesses. The subtopic today is how to stop multiplying by zero. Now, this is not a mathematics episode. I will be unqualified. I can teach multiplying by zero. Now, I know algebra, but this is not a mathematical episode. It's not a mathematics show. But this is a metaphor, and I'll explain exactly what I mean. I was reading articles recently about mental models. And for those of you who don't know what mental models are, then you can actually refer back to a masterclass I did a couple days ago where I talked about second order consequences versus first order consequences. That's a mental model, for example. Second order consequences is thinking, instead of thinking about the immediate result of your action, you think about the further down the line result of the action. That in itself is a mental model. So I was reading this article that listed like 100 different mental models, and I didn't even read about all 100 yet because there was so many of them. Each one of them had a sub article. But when I was reading this article, one of the things that it mentioned was this one right here, multiplying by zero. And I don't think that's the exact way that they described it, but this is the way that I'm going to describe it. So the site where I read this is called Farnam Street, Farnam Street, Farnam Street. I don't know why it's called that, but anyway, they are credited with the general idea of what I'm going to talk about here today. But as I've told you many times on this show, where I get an idea from someone else and then I go make it into a master class, they made it a hot line, I'm gonna make it a hot song. So they plant the seed of the idea, but then I go flesh it out in the work on your game way, and I make it into this full thing. So they didn't give me any of the rest of what you're gonna hear today. They just gave me the multiplying by zero. I said, that's a great idea. Let me go flesh that out, the work on your game way, and give people a class on it. So Farnam Street, you got your credit. Now it's back to me. In math, those of you who have taken math, know anything about math, you know that any number, no matter what the size of the number is, if you multiply it by zero, the result is what? Class? Zero. You multiply the number 5 by zero, you get zero. You multiply 5,000 by zero, you get zero. You multiply 5 billion by zero, you get zero. Today's topic is about identifying your areas of weakness in life, also known as your zeros, and fixing those areas rather than trying to make the other numbers bigger. So in other words, if you are a really great, let's get an example here. Let's say you're a student athlete and you get a scholarship to go play college football, baseball, soccer, basketball, doesn't matter, any sport. You're great at that sport. You're good enough to play at the professional level, and you're going to college right now so you can get better, work on your game, mature, grow, develop your skills even more around other players who are just as sharp, just as good as you. Let's say from a scale from 0 to 100, you're a 90 when it comes to playing sports. However, since you're a student athlete, that going to school is part of the deal. And of course, with your scholarship and being eligible and all that. But the problem is you don't go to class. You don't show up to class. When you do, you're sitting in the back, falling asleep. And even when you're paying attention, you're not really taking notes. You're not understanding anything. You don't go to the study halls. You're not ready for the test. You're not doing any of the projects. And you end up failing a bunch of your classes. And therefore, you end up ineligible and unable to play your sport, the very reason why you came to school in the first place. That your academic performance or lack thereof is a zero. So you're a 90 in playing sports, but you're a 0 in going to class. So what do you get when you multiply the 90 by the 0? You get 0. So you don't even get to do the thing that you're great at, the thing that you're a 90 at, because of the thing that you're a 0 at. Now, there are different models here. There's a model where there's additive. For example, when you're adding 90 to 0, you still have 90. But when you're multiplying, this is when basically two areas they are related, and therefore you need one in order to do the other. If one is missing, then it hinders your ability to do the other. So in school, as a student athlete, for example, your willingness and ability to execute in the classroom affects your willingness and ability to execute out on that field or on the court or in the pool or whatever sport you play. If you mess up in the classroom, then it will hinder your ability to get out on the field and play your sport. Do you understand that? But for example, let's say you were bad at partying in college. So we're going to keep this in the same area. You're bad at partying. You don't like to party. You don't know how to party. You can't dance. You can't hold your liquor. You don't like talking to girls or guys. You don't like talking to the opposite sex or anyone who may be interested in you. You're really horrible at that. You're a 0 at that as well. So you're a 90 at playing sports. And let's say you were a 10 at going to class. So good enough, you could get a C. C's get degrees, as they say. But you're a 0 at going to parties. The party is not multiplied because you don't need to party to survive college. You don't need the party to be a student athlete. You don't need the party to get C's in class. That's just an additive thing. It's a thing that you can add to the equation, but you don't need it in the equation. So what I'm talking about here today is not the partying aspect metaphorically of what you're doing in your life. I'm talking about the multiplication aspect, the school aspect. These are the things I'm talking about here today when I say multiplying by 0 as a weakness is something that if you do not fix it, or since you have not fixed it, because there may be some zeros in your life right now, it is hindering your abilities or it is lowering the effect of the things that you're actually good at. So it could be something that you're a 100 at, but because you're terrible at something else, it's killing your ability to be good at it. For example, if you're great at creating products and services, you have great offerings, or you've written great books, or you have a great podcast, or you think you have beautiful pictures that you post on social media, yet you're terrible at marketing. You're terrible at sales. You're terrible at getting attention to yourself. You're terrible at advertising. That 0 is hindering your ability to get your products and your services and your ideas into the hands of the people who actually need them. So do you understand how multiplying by that 0 is destroying your whole business, even though you're great at all of these other things? That 1 0 is destroying your ability to do everything else. That's what I'm talking about here today, metaphorically. And so today's topic is about fixing those zeros, those weaknesses, rather than doing what most people do. When they realize they have a 0 in a certain area, they ignore it. They hope that it goes away. And what they do is invest even more in doing the things that they're great at. Like, all right, if I just get better and better and better at the thing that I'm already a 99 at and try to push it to 100, it'll eliminate the need for me to fix that thing that's a 0. That is not how it works in life, ladies and gentlemen. This is about addressing your weaknesses, the weaknesses that are slowing you down. Not the weaknesses that don't matter, but the ones that are slowing you down. Most people don't do this because it requires a high level of discipline. It's going to require a little bit of pain because you're addressing something that you're not actually good at. And most people don't like working at things that they're not good at. And this is why most people don't do it. And this is why most people usually get to a certain point in life that they get as far as they can get based on how hard they work and the talent they have and the resources and timing and all of that mixed in. But then they can't get any further because they don't want to address their weaknesses in any way, shape, or form. And addressing your weaknesses, let me be clear here before we even get into our points. Addressing your weaknesses does not necessarily mean that you have to personally become great at these things. Now, if you're in school and you're terrible at school, you can go and find a tutor. You could usually get them for free, right? There's study halls. You could go, you could go buy a study guide off Amazon from somebody. You could hire somebody to take a test for you. That would technically be against the rules, but you get what I'm saying. You can outsource the thing that you're terrible at, but the point that I'm talking about here today is addressing it in some way. It doesn't mean that you have to do it, but you must address it in some way. If you're terrible at marketing, you don't have to become a marketing expert. You probably may not have the capacity to do so, but you can go find somebody who's good at it. You can go hire somebody who's good at it. You can partner with someone who's good at it to fix that weakness. That is today's topic. Now, I've given you a lot, and I haven't even gotten into my points, but that's the value of this class, and that's why if you want to get something this valuable, I've already given you a ton of value. We haven't even gotten to the damn points. Do you understand that I've done this over 1,500 times? If you want access to all of that, then go to Work on Your Game University right now while you're listening to me talk. The link is down below, either in the description. Yeah, in the description. Wherever you're listening to this, the link is down below in the description. Go to Work on Your Game U, which is Work on Your Game University, where you can get access to the full material of every one of these classes that I've ever done, and I've done a lot. Point number 1. Today's topic, once again, is fixing your weaknesses, how to stop multiplying by 0. Point number 1, when you are multiplying by 0, you have a 0 in your equation that is slowing you down. Enlarging the other number by any amount will continue to produce the same result, which is a 0. All right. Again, mathematically, everyone understands this, right? Everybody knows algebra, or I guess this is just multiplication, I guess. Fixing that 0 will do more for your results than you would get from adding more to the whole number on the other side of the equation. So again, if you're a 90 at playing soccer as a student athlete, but you're a 0 at going to class, becoming a 95 at playing soccer will not get you eligible to get on the field until you fix that 0 on the other side of the equation. So again, this is what a lot of people do. They keep working on the thing that they're good at because they're good at it. It's fun to work on things that you're good at because you look good, you feel good, and you're getting results. But when you work on the thing that you're a 0 at, there's going to be frustration. You probably tried it before and weren't that good at it. You don't look that great because you're a 0 at it, and there are people who are a lot better than you, so your ego is involved. So this is the reason why people don't address their weaknesses. But if you refer to masterclass number 637, I talked about this. The great ones always know and address their weaknesses. That's the title of that masterclass. Again, it's 637. The great ones always know and address their weaknesses. Now, what often happens to us when we're really good at certain things, we continue to leverage the areas that we're good at because it allows us to consciously or unconsciously blind ourselves to the areas where we have real issues. So if you're really good, for example, at making a lot of money in your business, but your family life is not doing so well, you can just keep making more money to mask the fact that your family life is falling apart. Or mask the fact that your marriage may be ending very soon, or mask the fact that your kids hate you. You just keep making more money to numb that pain. And whenever you think about it deeply, you just numb the pain by going and doing more of the thing that you're already good at, right? Maybe some of you know someone who's done this. Maybe you have been in this position. Maybe you're in this position right now. I remember I was once training a basketball player. I think he was in high school at the time. He was a really good outside shooter. So whenever I trained him, I would ask him when I first met him, start working with him, I would say, hey, what do you want to work on? What do we want to work on our next session? What do you want to work on this off season, whatever it was? And he would always want to work on shooting. Now, once I got to really get a look at his game and see how he played, I realized something, that his ball handling was suspect. He was an okay ball handler, but nothing more than that. He could not get to the rim off the dribble because ball handling was not good. He wasn't very athletic, and he was physically weak. I would sometimes play like dummy defense against him or have him play dummy defense against me. And he was so physically weak and unwilling and such an unwilling defender, I could just dribble right to the rim and just make a layup on him. I didn't even have to do a move or anything because he didn't offer any resistance. So he had no defensive ability. He was not athletic at all. He was not a great ball handler. So he had a whole lot of areas of his game that were not very good, but he was great at shooting the ball from the outside. That was the only thing he did really well. But whenever I would press him on this, like, hey, I know you're good at outside shooting, but how about let's work on your handle? How about you working on your physical strength? How about you working on your quickness? How about you putting some effort into working on your defense? He would always bristle at this suggestion. Now, he never wanted to work on any of that stuff. He only wanted to do more and more shooting drills. That 0 in his game wouldn't necessarily mean he couldn't play basketball at all, but at some point, he was probably going to get to playing against somebody who was going to notice these zeros in his game in a very short period of time. I mean, like within the first 2 or 3 plays of the game, realize, this guy can't play any defense. He can't dribble. Only thing he can do is shoot. So as long as we take away that, he's not going to do anything else. He can't hurt us in any other way. That 0 was not going to disappear from his game. All right, it would keep popping up over and over again until either A, he addressed it and did something about it, or B, the game basically said, all right, you're not going any further in this game of basketball until or unless you address this skill. And I don't know what level he's playing at now. He did go on and play in college, and he played in a system that allowed him to just play to his strengths. I have no idea if he had any impact whatsoever on the defensive end of the floor. My guess is that he didn't, and it's nothing personal against him if he happens to be listening to this, but that's just what it is. I can give it to you real. I give it to you real and raw here on the show. Whatever weakness you have in your areas, the things that matter to you, you notice already. They keep popping up over and over again every single time in your business, in your personal life, in your sport, until you address them. Or if you don't address them, they're just going to keep popping up. They're going to keep leaking out in different ways until you do something about it. I'm bringing it to your attention again here today because you know about it. All right, this is not a mystery to you. You know about it. Now I'm putting the onus on you to do something about it. Point number 2. Today's topic is multiplying by 0, or why you need to stop multiplying by 0 by fixing your weaknesses in life. Number 2, the system, any system that you are a part of, and just you personally as you being a system, you being a business, Your system is no stronger than its weakest component. As they say, the weakest link in the chain is where a chain gets broken. So you can have a whole bunch of strong links. You got one weak link. That's where the chain can be broken. So let's just say, for example, you're 6'9" tall, and you're a super athletic athlete who has genes for basketball. So let's say your parents were basketball players. Both of your parents were, your dad's 6'10", your mom's 6'4". They are very supportive of you becoming a basketball player because they were basketball players themselves. And you have a great Division I college career, and you have a great Division I college career. You win Player of the Year in your conference. You're getting all the awards. You're on TV. You're on magazine covers. You're doing all this stuff. Everyone's saying how great of a player you are and how great you're going to be moving forward. And then you go to the NBA draft and you get drafted as the #1 pick by the Boston Celtics, and you got the hat on and you're taking the pictures, and everybody's talking about how great of a player you're going to be and how you could be better than this guy, that guy. You're just going to continue the tradition of being a great players coming out of your school and playing for the Boston Celtics. Now, going through all of that, it's a pretty good chance that this player that I'm describing is probably going to have a great professional basketball career, right? Would you agree? 6'9", genes for basketball, parents who play basketball or at least are supportive of this players. Let's say this is a guy. Let's say it's a 6'9" male. Basketball dreams, D1 college career, wins Player of the Year, all the awards on covers of magazines, gets drafted first by the Boston Celtics. There's a pretty good chance this player is going to have at least a good enough professional basketball career. Would you agree? All right, this is not a trick question. However, one other thing I got to add into the story of this hypothetical basketball player. Let's say that you also have a cocaine habit. Yes, cocaine. Now, this is not a random set of circumstances that I'm giving you here. And this is not a hypothetical. Many of you probably don't know about this one, but some of you will. This is the story of a guy by the name of Len Bias. Len Bias played in the ACC, and he was 6'9", and he was athletic, and he was super talented, and he did have a great D1 college basketball career. He played at the University of Maryland in the ACC, played against Michael Jordan. Some people thought he might be better than Michael Jordan. Got drafted by the Boston Celtics 2 years? 2 years after Michael Jordan came to the NBA with the Bulls, Len Bias got drafted into the NBA with the Boston Celtics. He was the #1 pick in the draft right after the Boston Celtics had just won the championship. So the Celtics had made some trades. So they ended up with the #1 pick in the draft after they had just won the championship and they already had Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, best team in the league, and then they just got the #1 pick in the draft. Can you imagine that? That'd be like the Golden State Warriors when they had Curry, Clay, and Kevin Durant, and then they get the #1 pick, and then they draft Anthony Davis or LeBron James. Can you imagine what people would be saying if that happened? That's what happened in 1986 with the Boston Celtics. They drafted Len Bias. 2 days after he got drafted to the NBA, and some of you may be wondering, all right, I never heard of Len Bias. He was that good. He was supposed to be as good as Jordan, Dre. He was #1 pick in the draft, Dre. Why have I never heard of him, Dre, if he was so good? That's because 2 days after he got drafted to the NBA, he overdosed on cocaine and died. That was a zero in Lenny Bias's equation. Now, I'm not saying that to be disrespectful of his name, but these are the kind of zeros in someone's system that can erase all your other positives. He had a whole lot of positives going for him as far as on the court and what he could do with that ball. He had plenty of 100s or close to 100s out there. But because of that 1 0 in his equation, ruined everything else. How many people who are listening to me right now, you know someone, or maybe you've been someone who had some positive things going for them, had a lot of things going in their direction that was working, but something that seemingly had nothing to do with all the positives they had going in their lives derailed them from doing all the other things they wanted to do. Someone who was doing great in business, but they got into a bad legal situation, or someone who was maybe an athlete who got into a legal situation off the court or off the field, had nothing to do with them playing their sport, but because of that legal situation, they couldn't play their sport anymore. Or, like I just told you with Len Bias, cocaine overdose. And this is in the mid-'80s at the peak of the cocaine epidemic in the United States. But that 1 0 in the system erased all the other positives. So where do you have a zero in your system, or a potential zero in your system, that could be destroying all the other positive effects in the system? Point number 3. Today's topic is multiplying by zero, fixing your weaknesses, how to stop multiplying by zero. This does not mean, the things that I'm talking about here today, Doesn't mean that you need to aim to, or that it's even possible for you to turn your weaknesses into strengths. Because again, you may not have the capacity to do it. If you have a 0 at, let's say, like this kid I was talking about, the basketball player that I used to train, he was a 0 in physical strength. All right, he probably wasn't going to turn into, the Arnold Schwarzenegger by going into the gym and lifting weights. It wasn't his nature. His frame wasn't built for it. He probably wasn't going to become that great at it. What it means is you can no longer allow that weakness to be the weak link in your chain. And this is the problem that a lot of people have. They allow that weakness to be the weak link in their chain. They never address it. They never do anything about the weak link in their chain. And the thing is, you cannot claim ignorance when it comes to the weak links in your chain. You know where you're weak and you know where things need to be fixed. If you're just not addressing them, then, all right, that's a discipline issue. That's a mental toughness issue. We could also call it a confidence issue. Do you have the confidence to know that when you address the weak links in your chain, that they'll actually get fixed, that something actually will get better? Do you trust that you can find a way to fix that weak link? Are you mentally tough enough to deal with the inconvenience, maybe the frustration that's going to come with fixing it? Do you have the discipline to go address it at all? Point number 4, today's topic is multiplying by 0, how to fix your weaknesses in life. So the question is, how do you first identify your weaknesses so then you can work on them? Because there's some people who say, well, Dre, I don't know what my weaknesses are. I know I have some, but I don't know what they are. I don't know where my areas are that I actually need to fix. Fair enough. Let me tell you how you first identify your weaknesses and work on them. Because if you could fix them yourself, maybe they wouldn't be 0s in the first place. Now, there are some people out there for whom that is true. If you knew about what the weakness was and you knew of a way to fix it, you would do something about it. You might not become great at it, but you would have something. And there are other people out there who know exactly what their weaknesses are, but they claim ignorance, or I don't know what my weakness is, or they're just not paying attention to it, so they've forgotten what that weakness is. And maybe you know about your weaknesses, you're uncomfortable facing them, and that's why you suck at them. So here's where your coach or your mastermind group actually helps you. Here's where having the right set of peers around you actually helps you. Here's where surrounding yourself with a circle of people who are forward-thinking individuals, people who work on their gains, people who are about progress, people who are going somewhere, doing something with their lives. Here's where they benefit you a whole lot, because these are the people, when you have these type of people around you, at least one of those people in that circle will let you know, like, yo, there's a 0 in your game that you need to address. Hey, there's something here that you need to fix. Or if there's no one in the circle who's the type that will pull you aside and just give it to you like that without prompting, if you ask, someone in that circle will be able to tell you exactly what it is. Hey, here's what you need to fix. Here's what you're doing wrong. Here's where you need to get better. Here's what I've seen from you that you need to address. Maybe they wouldn't come out and just say it to you, but if you ask for it, they'll give it to you. And they can give it to you in a way that you'll understand it, in a way that you won't feel like you're being attacked, but you can appreciate it and you can do something about it. And they could probably point you in the right direction as to what to do about it. This is where you need to think about your associations. Because if there's no one in your circle of contacts who fits the description that I just gave, then that's a personal issue of yours. That's a void that you need to fill. You don't have the right friends around you. Why? You don't have the right people around you. Why? You don't have someone around you who can see where your weaknesses are and tell you what to do about them in a constructive, positive way. Why? Why don't you have those friends in your life? What's your problem? What's stopping you? And not having those friends could actually be one of your 0s. So you see how all of this supports itself. All right, it's a cycle that just repeats itself. You need to break that cycle by doing something different. And all the masterclasses I've done here, I've told you exactly what you need to do. All you got to do is go through them. I'll tell you exactly how to fix it. The best business people out there, the best actors, the best athletes, know one thing they all have in common? They all have coaches. They all have someone around them, at least one person, usually more than one, multiple people around them who could tell them where they need to fix things, where things aren't going right, where if they asked, they would get plenty of positive, constructive feedback for fixing their weaknesses, and they are willing to address those weaknesses. They understand that there are weaknesses and they're willing to address them. There are a lot of people out, everybody has weaknesses, but most people don't want to address them. Most people don't do anything about their weaknesses. They ignore them and hope the weaknesses go away. The people who get ahead in life, the people who move forward, the people who make things happen, they know they have weaknesses. They go and do something about them. What about you? Let's recap today's topic, which is fixing your weaknesses, how to stop multiplying by zero in life. Now, I told you I was reading about mental models. Thank you to Farnham Street for the idea, but they made it a hot line. I'm making it a hot song. In math, you know that multiplying any number by zero equals zero. Today's topic is about identifying your areas of weaknesses, aka your zeros, and fixing them rather than working on the other number, which you already been doing. That's how it got good. Fixing those zeros so that it stops pulling you down. Point number one, when you're multiplying by zero, enlarging the other number by any amount will continue to produce the same result, which is zero. Fixing the zero will change your results much more than adding to the whole number on the other side. I talked about this in masterclass 637. The great ones always know and address their weaknesses. Figure out what your weaknesses are, or identify those weaknesses, because you probably already know what they are. Understanding that zero will not disappear if you don't address it. It'll just keep popping up in different inconvenient ways for you. Point number two, systems are no stronger than their weakest component. So if you're a 6'9" super athletic basketball player who has the perfect genes for basketball, your parents are supportive of your dreams, you have a great D1 college career, you get drafted by the Boston Celtics, there's a good chance you're going to have a great pro career, yes. But if you also have a cocaine habit, that could end your life, let alone your career, in addition to your career. That's the story of Len Bias, a guy that many of you never heard of, who was supposed to be just as good as Michael Jordan. It was Michael Jordan got drafted in 1984, Patrick Ewing in 1985, Len Bias in 1986, David Robinson in 1987. You heard of all those guys except one, because Len Bias had a zero in his system, a cocaine habit that derailed his life and in addition to his career 2 days after he got drafted. That is a zero in the equation. That zero in the system, that weak link in the chain, caused the entire chain to break. The rest of the chain was perfect, except for that one little piece. Point number three. This does not mean that you need to aim to, or that it's even possible for you to turn your weaknesses into strengths. You may not have the capacity to do it. There may be a reason why your weakness is a weakness. It just means no longer allowing that weakness to be the weak link in your chain, figuring out a way to address it, whether that's getting help from someone else, fixing it yourself, doing something that plugs that gap. But the gap must be plugged. If you leave the gap there, you're going to continue to leak out of that hole until it becomes a dam. Point number four rather. How do you identify your weaknesses and then work on them? Because if you could fix them, maybe you would do something about them. Or if you knew about them, maybe you would find a way to address them. So here's where your coach, your mastermind group, your circle of friends, your associations help you. If you have the right associations around you, ladies and gentlemen, these are the people who will tell you when you have a weakness. They will tell you when it's something that needs to be fixed. If you ask them, they'll have answers. They'll point you in the right direction. But if you don't have anyone around you who is doing that, that is a weakness in your system. You don't have the right friends. You don't have the right associations. And you need to do something about that. Not today, not tomorrow, yesterday. Work on your game. Dre, all